everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about Bridgerton, the new fantastical Regency-era romance on Netflix. Have you seen Bridgerton yet? If not, do tread carefully as there is kind of a low-grade spoiler in this video. I want to talk about something that bothers me about Bridgerton before I focus on costumes. I love that we are getting a fairly lighthearted period show, and I love even more that one of the lead characters, Penelope, is played by a plus-size actress, Nicola Coughlan. Honestly, it is always a breath of fresh air to see someone who remotely looks like me on any sort of mainstream media at all, whether that's TV, movies, or even Broadway. And we rarely see any plus-size younger women in period dramas in particular, so to see a young lady getting to participate in The Season is really wonderful. Of course, Penelope is unfortunately the only plus-size young lady in this whole show, which further others her. There are no other plus-size young women to be seen in any of the scenes, even in the background. Like, plus-size women have existed all through history. You could at least stick some extras in the background. It's really not that hard. I honestly don't understand how mainstream media has yet to realize that half the population is plus-sized, and we want to see people like us on screen. And on top of that, it's not all fun and games here with Penelope either. One of the first comments directed towards her is a fat-shaming one, that she is 2 stones heavier than she ought to be.
This shall be her very first season.
I am not nervous, Mama.
What she is 2 stone heavier than she ought to be.
Those blemishes on her face are quite difficult to conceal.
Also, instead of presenting the fact that a plus-size woman is fully capable of being sought after by men, Penelope does not receive any suitors at all, and the object of her affections seems to think of her more as an extension of his sister than a possible love interest. I found a great article written by Christopher Rosa from Glamour that completely speaks to all of the things that I'm feeling here about Penelope, so if you feel the way I do, check the description for a link because I highly recommend giving that a read. And frankly, let's be honest here, after all that said, Nicola Coughlan is barely plus-sized at all. Now, of course, you might not realize that when you see her in Bridgerton, because the costume designer Ellen Mirajnik has dressed her in many very unflattering dresses that make Nicola look much larger than she actually is. There's a couple of possible reasons for doing this that I want to unpack here. Possibly, the costume designer is not familiar with dressing plus-size women in a flattering manner. This costume designer also designed The Greatest Showman, where you see another plus-size character with boobs up to her chin. So maybe the designer doesn't understand how corsets should properly fit plus-size women? It's a possibility. The other possibility is that it was done on purpose, that Nicola was mainly given unflattering dresses to wear as a further way to fat-shame her character. While most of the women in this show are dressed in Regency attire that, though not made of historically accurate fabrics, are at least done in historically accurate silhouettes, Penelope is given gowns that are completely ill-fitting. With the exception of the absolutely gorgeous court gown she wears in the first scene, almost all of her dresses are far too short for her in the bust, causing the underbust seam to sit on the lower part of her bust as opposed to below. What this means is that the fitted part of her dress from which the skirts fall away is not on a small part of her body. This makes her waist look bigger and her bust just look downright uncomfortable. Other than her gorgeous court gown, her other most flattering dress is actually her nightgown from episode 4. The interesting thing here is that Penelope's nightgown would make a splendid day dress in most Jane Austen adaptations. A fuller, floaty white cotton dress that is very flattering on her. She appears to still be wearing her stays under the gown, which is a little strange since she's supposedly going to sleep, and while her bust is still high, she's not being cut off by that terrible across-the-boob waistline that so many of her other dresses have. I wish she wore more dresses like this in the series. I do want to touch briefly on dress color also. With the exception of the 2 dresses I mentioned, all of Penelope's dresses are brightly colored. This is a design choice, as the whole family is dressed in these crazy shades, and their mother even mentions at one point that they are the family colors. That said, Penelope does get the shorter end of the stick here, with half of her dresses being in an unflattering shade of yellow. But again, this is a plot point, so we'll let it slide. Okay, that's my Penelope rant over. Now I want to briefly discuss the rest of the costumes from Bridgerton in a little section I'm calling Bridgerton Costumes, the good, the bad, and the ugly. First, the good. In general, most people in the show are wearing Regency silhouettes. Also, the colors and textures are fun, interesting, and often quite glamorous, though of course not historically accurate. Apparently, 7,500 costumes were made for this series, which is impressive, and the majority of them are quite enjoyable. But let's talk about the bad. Corsets. Bridgerton was downright stupid about corsets. Why do all period dramas nowadays think they need to play into the trope that corsets were bad and that everyone tight-laced and no one could breathe?
Tighter!
Is she to breathe, Mama?
I was able to squeeze my waist into the size of an orange and a half when I was Prudence's age. Your sister shall do the same.
This is literally impossible in a Regency corset. Like, you can't tight-lace them at all. They're hardly boned. And even if you could tight-lace them, there is literally no point because no one can see your waistline in a Regency dress. Also, your corset isn't going to make you bleed, and it's not going to hurt you at all if you would put on a freaking shift underneath. Those corsets must have been so gross being worn without anything under them. All that sweat soaking right into the corset. Ugh, disgusting. Next up on the bad list, the Queen. Bridgerton is supposed to take place in 1813. Fashion, historically speaking, was dictated by the wealthy and the powerful. So why is the highest woman in the land wearing dresses that are so incredibly out of date? Yes, it's another costume drama trope to put older women in older fashions, but she's literally wearing gowns from a good 50 years prior. She didn't stop evolving her style when she was a teenager. And although there are other older women in this show, like Lady Danbury or Lady Bridgerton, they are both wearing the Regency silhouette, which really makes it seem like they're showing up the Queen.
Everyone, I believe this evening is complete. Go out at once.
The third place bad here was the almost complete lack of day wear. Apparently, anyone who is out is incapable of wearing long sleeves, because in the Regency period, or any period for that matter, you don't just go around wearing your evening gown all day. Unless, of course, you are a character in Bridgerton. At least Eloise was there to show us a tiny bit of day wear, but there was still not a bonnet nor a cap in sight in the whole show. Honorable mention in the bad category to Daphne's hair. Her hair looked so nice in that first court scene. Okay, just about everything looked gorgeous in the court scene. And then it was such a letdown for pretty much the rest of the show. Like, literally, let down. When everyone else's hair was in these Hunger Games capital-esque extravaganzas, and Daphne is over there pretending to be Wendy from Peter Pan at best, it makes her look pretty stupid. Though, I suppose, to be fair to Daphne, Eloise's deflated waves and flattened bangs was pretty sad looking too. Okay, now for the ugly. Lady Featherington takes the cake here. Like, oh my god, what the hell is she wearing? I think she just stepped out of the late 1990s trying to be some sort of a sexy mother of the bride category here. Yes, character-wise, she's trying to show that she still has a small waist. But if you're going to do that, maybe she should be wearing the super old fashions like the Queen. Or, you know, just don't do any of that at all. She looked so stupid and out of place, wearing something that was not even remotely historical. Ugh, ridiculous. All right, that's it. Thank you for sticking around for my brief rant. Overall, I did enjoy Bridgerton, despite the questionable costume choices I've mentioned, and despite the fat shaming that Penelope suffers through. Hopefully, someday soon, we'll get to enjoy a period drama, or heck, any sort of mainstream media, where we see a plus-size woman in a romantic leading role, where her size has absolutely zero impact on the script or the story. Wouldn't that be nice? If you want something that does come somewhat close to that, please do yourself a favor and go watch Godmothered on Disney+, featuring a plus-size woman in the title role where her size is never mentioned. It's not a romantic lead, but definitely still a great step forward, so I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see gorgeous, historically accurate Regency costumes, just play the 2020 version of Emma on repeat because those costumes are... Anyway, thanks again for watching. If you liked this video, please be sure to click the thumbs up icon, and if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a video. I normally post videos on YouTube twice a week, with sewing vlogs on Tuesdays and other costuming content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram, that's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to support me in all that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Ko-fi account down below. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!